Canada has unleashed a fiery new wave of diplomatic defiance that has sent shockwaves through Washington and rattled Donald Trump's political camp. In a move that analysts are calling both bold and calculated, the Canadian government rolled out a hard-hitting ad campaign that directly challenges Trump's trade rhetoric and foreign policy approach, reigniting tensions between Ottawa and the former president. The campaign, which was released across multiple digital and television platforms, underscores Canada's growing frustration with what officials describe as Trump's constant interference and misinformation about the US-Canada relationship. The ad features stark imagery of American steel plants, Canadian farmers, and workers in cross-border industries, emphasizing the interconnectedness of both economies while warning that Trump's policies would hurt American jobs as much as Canadian ones. With the tagline "and stronger together," the message is as much a defense of Canada's economic independence as it is a jab at Trump's divisive politics. Inside Ottawa, officials say the campaign was necessary to correct what they call persistent distortions spread by Trump's speeches and media appearances, where he has repeatedly accused Canada of taking advantage of the United States in trade deals, energy markets, and defense contributions. Trump, now a central figure in Republican politics again, has long used Canada as a rhetorical punching bag, often lumping the country into his broader critique of America's trade partners. But this time, the Canadian government seems unwilling to stay silent. Sources close to the Prime Minister's office say the new ad marks the beginning of a coordinated effort to push back against what they view as an existential threat to North American stability if Trump regains power. The reaction from Trump's inner circle has been immediate and intense. His campaign aides reportedly scrambled to draft counter-statements, accusing Canada of meddling in U.S. politics and attempting to influence a 2026 election. Trump himself took to social media late last night, blasting the ad as another globalist stunt from a weak government that needs America more than America needs them. In a fiery post, he wrote that Canada should worry about its own collapsing economy before lecturing the US. The post sparked a flood of online responses, with Trump's loyal supporters echoing his sentiments, while critics mocked him for being thin-skinned and insecure about a foreign government's media strategy. Political experts say the timing of the Canadian ad is no coincidence. With Trump escalating his campaign rhetoric about imposing new tariffs and negotiating NAFTA 2.0, now called the USMCA, Ottawa appears to be sounding a warning that it will not accept another round of trade bullying. The ad, which features real Canadian workers speaking about their dependence on stable trade ties, positions Canada as a mature partner in the North American alliance. One segment shows a steelworker saying, "When our neighbors succeed, we succeed. But when walls go up, jobs go down." The ad's emotional appeal and patriotic tone have struck a chord across Canada, where polls show growing anxiety about what a second Trump presidency could mean for their economy. Behind the scenes, Canadian diplomats have been working overtime to build alliances within Washington. Sources indicate that several top Canadian officials have quietly reached out to key Democrats and moderate Republicans, urging them to maintain cross-border trade commitments. The goal, insiders say, is to ensure that no matter who wins the next U.S. election, Canada's economic security will remain intact. Trump's erratic trade policies during his first term left deep scars on Canadian industries, from lumber to dairy, and Ottawa is determined not to repeat those years of uncertainty. The ad's release has also ignited debate within Canada itself. Some opposition leaders accuse the government of escalating tensions unnecessarily, warning that direct confrontation with Trump could backfire. Conservative critics argue that the ad risks alienating future U.S. administrations, especially if Trump wins. But Liberal and NDP lawmakers have largely rallied behind the move, saying Canada can no longer afford to be passive in the face of repeated attacks. In Parliament, one MP declared, "We are not going to let anyone define our relationship with America through lies and intimidation. Canada will stand its ground." South of the border, the reaction has been mixed. Some U.S. media outlets praise the Canadian campaign for highlighting the value of international cooperation and exposing Trump's erratic leadership style. The New York Times ran an editorial calling the ad a refreshing reminder that allies can still hold each other accountable. Meanwhile, conservative networks blasted the campaign as foreign interference, accusing Canada of trying to sway American voters. Fox News hosts devoted entire segments to criticizing Ottawa's hypocrisy, pointing to Canada's carbon policies and high taxes as proof that it should not lecture the U.S. on economics. Still, the ad's reach has been undeniable. Within hours of its launch, it trended across major social media platforms, accumulating millions of views and sparking conversations in both countries. Political strategists say it has already forced Trump into a defensive posture, making him appear rattled and reactive, traits his campaign has worked hard to downplay. The former president's recent rallies have included increasingly aggressive language about Canada, describing it as a country that used to respect us but doesn't anymore. Analysts note that this escalation could backfire, further alienating moderate voters who viewed Canada as a friendly ally rather than an adversary. At the heart of the dispute is a larger question about the future of North American relations. Trump's America First doctrine has long clashed with Canada's multilateral approach, and many experts fear that another round of protectionist policies could destabilize industries that depend on cross-border supply chains. Economists estimate that millions of jobs in both countries are directly tied to the USMCA framework, and any disruption could ripple through sectors like automotive manufacturing, energy, and agriculture. For Canada, which exports roughly 75% of its goods to the United States, stability in Washington is not just a political issue but an economic lifeline. The Canadian ad's strategic tone also reveals how Ottawa is preparing for potential political turbulence. By positioning itself as a defender of truth and partnership, Canada is attempting to shape international perceptions early, especially among Americans who may not fully understand the depth of economic integration between the two nations. This preemptive approach, experts say, could help mitigate the fallout if Trump returns to power and revives his combative stance on trade. Diplomats in Ottawa are also mindful of the global audience. The campaign, while aimed at American voters, sends a signal to other allies that Canada will not be intimidated by populist rhetoric. European and Asian observers have noted the campaign's boldness, interpreting it as part of a broader effort by middle powers to push back against nationalist movements that threaten global cooperation. A senior European diplomat privately commented that Canada is showing the kind of leadership that many allies wish they could. Meanwhile, Trump's campaign has doubled down on its own messaging. In rallies across key swing states, he has accused Canada of manipulating energy markets and unfairly benefiting from U.S. military protection. He has promised to impose new tariffs on Canadian aluminum and hinted at withdrawing from USMCA altogether. These threats have raised alarms in business circles, where executives fear that renewed uncertainty could derail post-pandemic recovery efforts. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce issued a cautious statement urging both countries to avoid politicizing trade relationships that underpin millions of livelihoods. Public opinion in both nations continues to shift. In Canada, recent polls show overwhelming support for the government's stance, with nearly 70% of respondents saying they approve of assertive measures to defend national interests against Trump's attacks. In the United States, however, views remain polarized. While many Americans appreciate Canada's friendship, others echo Trump's sentiments that the U.S. must prioritize domestic interests over global cooperation. Political scientists warn that if tensions continue to escalate, it could strain one of the world's most stable alliances. Adding to the complexity, Trump's inner circle is reportedly divided over how to handle Canada's move. Some advisors are urging restraint, suggesting that continuing to lash out makes Trump appear unpresidential, while others encourage him to keep up the fight to energize his base. Insiders describe a chaotic atmosphere in Trump Tower, where aides debate whether to ignore the Canadian ad or launch a full-scale counter-offensive through right-wing media. One aide reportedly said, "He hates looking weak. Every time another country calls him out, he takes it personally." The Canadian Prime Minister, meanwhile, has avoided responding directly to Trump's insults, choosing instead to emphasize themes of partnership and respect. In a recent interview, he stated, "Our relationship with the United States is built on decades of friendship, not on one person's anger. We will always speak the truth, even when it's inconvenient." That line has since been quoted across international media, reinforcing Canada's image as the calmer voice in the storm. Economists say the stakes could not be higher. With both countries grappling with inflation, supply chain disruptions, and energy challenges, maintaining a stable trade environment is essential. Any deterioration in relations could have ripple effects far beyond North America. Canada's largest trading partners, including the European Union and Japan, are closely monitoring the situation, worried that a breakdown in North American cooperation could trigger wider market instability. Despite the risks, Canadian officials remain steadfast. Privately, they believe that standing up to Trump now will strengthen their credibility later, regardless of who wins the next U.S. election. "If we bend every time someone shouts, we'll lose our voice," one senior Canadian diplomat said. This ad is not about provocation, it's about principle. As the controversy grows, media coverage has turned the dispute into a defining geopolitical drama, with Trump's reactions fueling the story further. Late-night hosts in the U.S. have mocked his outbursts, while Canadian commentators praise their government's newfound assertiveness. Social media has turned the ad slogan into a viral hashtag, with millions sharing clips highlighting cross-border cooperation. The online response has even inspired parody videos and memes, many showing Trump squirming as headlines describe his inability to control the narrative. The broader implication of this clash extends beyond trade. It represents a symbolic battle between two worldviews, one rooted in cooperation, the other in confrontation. Canada's doubling down is not just a defense of its own interests, but a message to the world that smaller nations can push back against political bullying. Whether that message will resonate in the long run remains to be seen, but for now, the diplomatic gloves are clearly off. As the story continues to unfold, one thing is certain: the relationship between Ottawa and Trump's circle is entering a new, more confrontational phase. Both sides are locked in a test of resolve, and neither ready to back down. For Trump, the ad is a reminder that his words carry global consequences. For Canada, it is an opportunity to prove that it can stand tall, even in the shadow of a giant. In the end, this battle of messages could redefine not only the future of North American trade, but also the political tone of the next U.S. election.